stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mierzecka. I'm delighted to welcome you to our workshop where we're going to have opportunity to discuss social aspect of Metaverse from the perspective of different science. Interdisciplinarity always allow to deepen the knowledge, and I'm glad that we're going to have this opportunity together. I would like to welcome all the participants of workshop, the players of Prohibition, the game which will give us the chance to observe the social interaction in virtual reality. Especially warm, I would like to welcome our speaker. We are very grateful for your presence with us today. Professor Mark Billingerster, the Director of Empathic Computing Laboratory, University of South Australia. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Hello. Professor Matthew Cotton, Teesside University from UK. Hello. Carlos Ochoa Fernandez, President of VR Association, Chapter Madrid.
Nice Hello, how are you doing?
Hi. Professor Andy Yeon from North Illinois University. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
And Professor Tomasz Gackowski, Head of Laboratory of Media Studies, University of Warsaw.
Hi there. All of our hosts today, they got also option to share the screen. Everybody. Thanks.
I would like also to present our laboratory team. Professor Tomasz Gackowski you already know. Dr. Karolina Brylska is Vice Head of our laboratory. Sorry. Marcin Łączyński and Marlena Sztyber are PhD students and also our research team members. Adam Balcerzak, without whom we wouldn't do anything, as he provides us IT support. And today are with us our students. You'll not see them at the moment, but they will be in charge of our game. So as you know, the first part of our workshop will start with the speeches of our panelists, and after will be the time for discussion and the questions. So if you will have something in mind, please note it, and after will be the time that you can ask your question. So the first, it's Mark Billingerster, who will talk about empathic computing going beyond the metaverse. Mark, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. It's good to be here, and I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully that will work okay. Let's just see if this works. Can you see okay? Great, perfect. Good. So my name is Mark Billinghurst, and I'm from the University of South Australia, and actually also the University of Auckland, and I'm going to talk about going beyond the metaverse. So of course the metaverse has become very popular the last couple of months, partly because of Meta or Facebook's efforts, and they showed this concept of being able to use the metaverse for this kind of social VR space. And there are many other people now working in this space, looking at how you can use both AR and VR to enhance collaboration. You can see on the right-hand side some examples of AR from the spatial.io and from the Microsoft Mesh. But I think we have to go beyond just the popular concept of the metaverse. And if we return back to the original concept from Neil Stephenson's book, The Snow Crash, he talks about there how the metaverse is the convergence of a virtually enhanced physical reality and also a physically persistent virtual space. So it kind of bleeds into the real world. And in the metaverse roadmap, it talks about how the metaverse has these 4 dimensions. One is augmentation, so technologies that layer information on top of our physical environment. One that's simulation, that models the reality. Intimate technologies that focus inwardly on the individual, and external technologies that focus outwardly. So you can arrange these into this kind of taxonomy here, and you can see here these axes going from augmentation to simulation and from external to internal. And augmented reality and virtual reality exist in 2 corners of these axes. But you also have these other two areas, life logging and mirror worlds, that exist in the other two. And I think many people's attentions are focused on the AR and VR part, but not so much on the other parts. So, so we have, for example, with life logging is really about sensing and being able to measure the body's state. With the mirror world, it's really around capturing and being able to simulate and duplicate our real environment. And of course, we all know about immersive augmented and virtual reality and augmented reality. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we can go beyond just AR and VR and look at these other two areas as well. And that might give us a way to expand and create new types of metaverse experiences. And in particular, over the last 10 years or so, we've seen a number of trends happening in the communication space. The first is a trend towards experience capture. So moving away from just Zoom calls where you can see each other's faces to putting cameras on our heads or other technology that allows us to capture our surroundings and share them. A second trend is toward more natural collaboration. So much faster networks means we can now start streaming high definition video or AR, VR content. So you can, as you can see in the picture there, being able to have AR people exist in the real world. And then the third trend is towards building systems that provide implicit understanding. This means that we've got cameras on our devices that can look at us and understand how we're feeling. They can recognize our behaviors and our emotions. And so these three topics, natural collaboration, experience capture, and implicit understanding, all overlap in the space that we call empathic computing. Now, of course, we all know about empathy. Alfred Adler famously said empathy is being able to see with the eyes of another, listen with the ears of another, and feel with the heart of another. But empathic computing is really about, excuse me, designing systems that allow us to share what we're seeing, hearing, and feeling with others. So it goes beyond just being able to see each other, but also includes being able to share some emotions. So let me show you a couple of examples of that. This is the system called the Empathy glasses that we developed in 2016. And the idea of the system was to be able to share some of the communication cues we have in face-to-face communication remotely. In particular, share our eye gaze and our face expression when we are not physically present. So we combined together an eye tracking system with an AR glasses and also a special frame called the Effective Wear frame that captured our face expression. And this was used in a collaborative AR situation. So the person's wearing all this technology. On their head, they have a camera. They can live stream the view of their workspace from the camera to a remote person. And then the remote person can point on the video and send that pointing back, and can also observe what they're doing. So on the right-hand side here, if you've got good eyes, you'll see there's a green spot. The green spot is the remote pointer from the remote person. But just above that is a red spot. And the red spot is this person's eye gaze. And so now if the remote person knows exactly where the person is looking. So it's really an important implicit cue. Because of course we look at things before we interact with them. We also had the face expression recognition. So you can see on the bottom right hand, a simple icon showing the person's face expression, and the heart rate on the right hand side here showing their heart rate as well. So here's a video of the system working. You'll see a person is arranging these blocks in front of them into kind of a picture, and they're able to share their view of their real workspace with a remote collaborator, and the remote person can then move the mouse around and observe the person's eye gaze. And as they're moving their mouse and pointing, they can tell whether the person is paying attention or not, because their eye gaze follows where they're pointing. So this provides a very important communication cue. And as I said, we also had the heart rate sensor being measured and a face expression sensor, and that was by using this effective wear where we use photosensors to measure the distance to the skin. And what we found by doing this is by sharing that remote pointer and especially sharing the eye gaze, it means that we're able to create a much stronger social connection because we are sharing those implicit communication cues. However, one problem with that you'll notice is that we can only see the video of what the person's looking at. And what you really want to be able to do for the remote person is not just see what they're looking at, but go beyond that. And so most recently, we've looked at how we can use multiple depth sensing cameras to capture the person's whole surrounds and share in real time a 3D model of the surrounding environment. So the remote person now feels immersed into their space. And this is an example, as I showed before, of that mirror world from the Metaverse taxonomy, where you can create a simulation of the real world. So this video here shows that. You can see on the left-hand side, the top-down God's eye view, the right-hand side, the first-person view. And this is all in real time. So the person who's viewing this inside VR can walk through now the model of our lab space. And you can see that one of my students walking into the lab space and being captured as a 3D point cloud and shared remotely as well. So this is a little bit rough. The blue areas are where there's camera occlusion and we can't see, but it gives you an idea of what's coming in the future in terms of technologies that allow us to live stream our 3D environment very, very quickly. And then the last thing I want to talk about is how we can go beyond just sharing what we are seeing, but also sharing a bit more what we're feeling. And in particular, we've been doing some research on a very interesting area called brain synchronization. So it turns out when people in the real world do a real task, so you can see two people here looking at each other and pointing with their fingers. In this case, one person's going to start moving their finger around, the other person's going to follow that. When this happens, the electrical signal in the brain sometimes becomes synchronized. So you can see here is they're both their heads, and these black dots show where the EEG electrodes are, and these shows the electrical signals. Nothing is happening right now. Then we get them to do the finger tracking exercise and then stop again. And then when they've stopped again, we see this happening. And so those arcs there represent electrical signals from the electrodes that are in phase with each other. So you can see some of the electrodes from each of the people are now in phase. And when this happens, people will report feeling more connected to one another and being in a kind of a flow state from psychology. So this is very, very interesting. And a couple of years ago, we did the first test of this inside virtual reality. So you can see here, people are wearing VR headsets and they're doing that same task. Of course, because they're in VR, they don't need to face each other anymore. And so in the VR environment, you can see this. You can see an avatar of your colleague, and then the goal is to track your fingers around with the avatar. But because, of course, you're in VR, you can now put yourself inside the other person's body. So we also did a experience where you're inside the other person's body. And so you look down and you see an extra pair of hands coming out of your body, and you can do that same finger tracking exercise as well. And again, when we did that, we found that same brain synchronization happening. And in fact, because you could see through the other person's body, it was enhanced because you had the same perceptual cues. So this is an example of showing, again, the two brains with the red electrodes, and those strong red lines between them show electrodes that are now in synchronization. And this is really exciting because now we're starting to have people developing VR and AR headsets that are sensor enhanced that can measure these types of physiological cues. So for example, the HP Omnicept, where it combines eye tracking and heart rate information, and Project Galea that's going to be released next year from Valve and OpenBCI contains a wide variety of sensors like EEG, EMG, EDA, PPG, eye gaze, etc. So once you've got all those sensors in a head mount, you can go beyond just sharing, the visuals of a person. You can use it for a wide range of different things. For example, if you're measuring EMG, you can measure the facial muscles and facial expression. With EDA, you can measure emotion levels. With EEG, you can measure the cognitive load. And so you can imagine how you can take all the sensory information and provide a lot of information about the internal state of a person, which again goes back to that life logging I was talking about with the metaverse. And so we can go beyond just seeing each other as simple avatars, but representing that in new ways. And so we have this technology trends happening right now towards better displays, as I've shown you, real-time space capture, gesture and gaze interaction, and then using these new sensors in our head mounts towards emotion sensing and sharing. And all of these things can combine together into what we might call empathic teleexistence. And so the idea of empathic teleexistence is that you can have a collaborative experience where you move from being an observer to being a participant, and you can have a more experiential collaboration where you feel like you're doing a task together. And you can share more implicit communication cues. So we move from having a metaverse where you just watch what somebody else is doing in the environment, where you actually could inhabit that person's body and do the task with them, or feel like you're really inside that person's real space if you can capture their environment and know exactly how they're feeling. So just to wrap up, what I've talked about today is how when we think about the metaverse, we should think about beyond just the AR and VR elements, but also these other elements around life logging and mirror worlds and experience capture. And this all leads to the area of empathic computing, where we can build systems that enhance our understanding of other people, especially their emotional states and their experiences. And by combining AR and VR technology with physiological sensors, we can build systems that have very new and interesting ways to collaborate together. And of course, there are many research directions in this space. You know, I've shown you the brain synchronization and some examples of sharing communication cues, but there's a lot of research that needs to be done in terms of how do you capture and represent emotion, how can you change representation of other people in interesting ways, how can you do things like using avatars to support communication in interesting ways as well. So that's what we're trying to do in my laboratory. So if any of that's interesting to you, please connect with me. Here's my lab website and email address and my Twitter feed. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's amazing example of science and how it's possible to combine different research techniques. It was very, very interesting. Thank you. And now I would like Matthew Cotton will present, as far as I know, your topic is ethical decision-making and virtual environments. So thank you very much, and please.
Thank you. I'll figure out sharing the white screen. There we go.
Correct. You should have the ability to share the screen. And of course, Mark, we have some questions, but on the end,
many
right?
of them, yeah.
That's great.
Hang on. Sorry, it's not letting me do that.
On the bottom, in the middle of the bottom of the frame, you're going to have to share the screen, yeah? You click it and then you have the...
Yes. Ooh. It's denying me doing this. Hang on.
Okay.
Right.
Because I'm sure that I gave you, all right. One moment.
Yes, trzeci od góry.
I have confirmation that we gave you the co-host option.
Yes, sorry. This is when I'm clicking on it, it's saying open system preferences, Microsoft PowerPoint.
You're using share the screen, yeah, and you should have a pop-up screen and to pick up the frame that you want to share. You have it, or there is a denial?
No, it's a denial there. Hang on.
Okay, so I will just, you know, take back from you being a co-host and give you again.
Okay.
All right. Wait a minute, and I will do it again.
Oh.
Please, I did it again. You know, it's good, but we hear you.
It's
all right. Don't bother.
Oh, security and privacy. Hang on.
Oh my.
All right. Okay. Hang on.
Nie, to nic nie zmieni, to jest kwestia w systemie.
So now I think it's a problem with my computer. Hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm holding up your entire workshop. There we go.
No, that's no problem. You know, maybe there is an option that you have some blocks that you cannot share so easily on your computer.
Yeah.
So there is some limitation on your system.
There you go. Is that working now? Can you see?
Yeah.
You have it.
Yeah.
Yes, great. So stage is yours. It's great.
The embarrassment of doing this in this conference is just, you know. Right. So thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, so I'm going to talk a little bit about ethics related to the metaverse. I'm a professor of public policy. I focus primarily on science and technology policy, but I also have a background in sort of applied ethics, and I'm interested very much in the ethical dimensions of new technologies, of which this is quite an important one. So Just in terms of the general structure, obviously defining the metaverse, very tricky at the moment, but I'm going to use a fairly simple definition. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges to implementing Mark Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse, which are not specifically ethical, but are just kind of general challenges. And then I'm going to look at kind of 6 principal ethical issues related to the development of this kind of metaverse idea. And then I'm going to consider some potential future research and a bit of a kind of policy agenda around this, this concept. So obviously, yeah, Snow Crash is kind of the sort of the baseline for discussing the metaverse, and of course, others like Ready Player One. It is a little bit difficult to define what the metaverse is. I mean, I guess it's discussed as this type of extended reality, blending together VR, AR, and kind of mixed reality platforms. It's also described as a way of bringing together kind of social media networks with gaming and other VR functions in a kind of shared space rather than single isolated platforms. But when we look at its kind of the representations of this idea and similar ideas in literature and film, everything from The Matrix to Existenz or other things which I'm sure you're all familiar with, we come back to these questions about whether or not these are tools to enhance social life, whether they are to escape from it, or if, as a lot of us might suspect, to sell us things more effectively. So there are a bunch of challenges to this idea of the metaverse taking off, which may or may not be to do with ethics or social life in general. But the first question, I guess, is this just the kind of techno-optimism of Mark Zuckerberg? We've been here before with virtual reality. I got a picture of the Virtual Boy from Nintendo, which is like table mounted. We've got Google Glass that I guess is making a comeback now, but didn't take off the first time. Virtual reality technologies using head-mounted displays or even augmented reality using phones or other kind of available technology devices still remain relatively niche compared to other sort of more ubiquitous forms of computing that we carry around. So gaming, training, using meetings, Second Life didn't quite take off. The question of whether or not the metaverse can integrate all of these platforms seamlessly into something which is actually usable and has, has a market for it, I think remains to be seen. Also, I guess it came out in the context of a global pandemic and this kind of lockdown. It made a lot of sense at the time to have a kind of virtual meeting place. But now, of course, the world has opened up. People are craving personal interaction with one another. The question is whether or not a virtual world just becomes a memory of a time when people felt socially isolated, which might in turn damage the kind of future market or demand for this type of technology. And then there are some technical questions around the capacity to maintain persistent connected virtual worlds, like with Facebook or Twitter with kind of free virtual entry. What essentially is the cost to the consumer involved in this kind of thing? And will therefore access be fair? If you have to buy a very expensive head-mounted display to take part in this, then what does that mean for those who can't afford them? Do they then become disenfranchised or further isolated through lack of access? So those are questions to answer as well. The other, of course, is that if we have a metaverse that is effectively owned by Meta, the company, what are the problems surrounding a single company monopoly of this type of technology? And does Meta itself have sufficient public trust or indeed trust amongst EU regulators in order to actually make this go smoothly for them? And then, of course, we come against the failure of the wetware. The human beings themselves suffer from motion sickness, have sensory processing problems. They can become addicted to using these kinds of technologies. There's also issues around being sedentary and problems of obesity. So there are lots of other kind of social problems that might, again, become challenges to this metaverse taking off. Now, when it comes to ethical issues specifically, metaverse ethics are not entirely new in and of themselves. What we're actually talking about is an intersection of different information ethics challenges relating to AI, VR, gaming, social media, things like deep fakes, ethics around cryptocurrencies or NFTs, We're also talking about problems of data governance across legal borders. And there are really strong sort of established literatures in all of these areas. The question is whether or not the metaverse itself as a phenomenon can bring all of those different ethical challenges together, or whether or not it presents new ones all by itself. And so I've got a few of them here, I think, as just a general overview of some of the stuff that will come up over the next few years. Now, issues around privacy, I think, are really important. I mean, in Professor Billinghurst's presentation, he's talking about creating sort of empathic computing, which includes lots of new types of biometric and location preference data, including eye tracking data, which is then fed back through the metaverse. And if we know anything from the kind of algorithmic governance of social media platforms like Facebook, we know that those types of data are used to prioritize specific adverts and then feed that back to us. Now, of course, the more data that we provide to a company, essentially, the more that they can do this and the more effective it becomes. Often we talk about this idea of nudging, using our relatively irrational brains and kind of using that, those illogical thought processes that we use to sell us more products, to shift our public opinion, or to set political agendas. And so there are real ethical concerns about who is using this technology and for what purpose. There's also questions around, vulnerable people using these, not just children, but, others who are vulnerable, who might be overloaded with this kind of sensory overload, leaving us vulnerable to all of those things like phishing scams or whatever it might be that we already suffer from within society. And of course, if the metaverse is owned by a company, there's no government control. There's therefore a strong lack of accountability for those companies. The questions around empathic computing and empathic teleexistence and raises questions around neural rights. If we combine that sort of increased sensory fusion, sensor fusion, combining lots of different kinds of data, that becomes effectively more of a context-aware system. This raises questions around neural rights and a neural right to identity, to free will, and internal mental privacy. Now, if we have a lot of these technologies, they will of course be voluntary, but there's also questions around informed consent. Can this be continually established in an ever-shifting virtual landscape? Those are kind of big questions, and some of those are going right up to the UN about whether or not we need to have kind of neural rights written into the Declaration of Human Rights as the law catches up with technology. There's also this idea of what I tend to call covert virtual objects. This is a slightly different approach, but thinking about things like deep fakes, this combination of video editing and machine learning. The question about if you spend a lot of time in a virtual environment to do most of your work and social activity, does it then make it harder for you as an individual to differentiate truth from fiction? Whether this is deep fakes or chatbots or whatever it might be, the expansion of those into an immersive environment. The question for me, I think, is whether or not those then have offline impacts. Is it then difficult for people to differentiate truth from fiction outside of those virtual environments? And then, but it's not necessarily all bad. Sometimes having that kind of interaction in those spaces can overcome things like what we're seeing at the moment with state propaganda, the walling off of access to information, which means that you can then control a population. Actually, these types of technologies might be able to overcome that. There are also questions, of course, around bodily autonomy. If anyone's ever been involved in a massive multiplayer online role-playing game or any other kind of virtual environment, there are always questions around sexual or kind of physical abuse of avatars within virtual environments. There's a lot of misogyny. And of course, those negative impacts can be worsened by the immersive nature of VR. There's also, we see things like children using these platforms, experiencing simulated sexual actions, and these would constitute sexual abuse, but it becomes very difficult to prosecute in many cases, and often the law is lagging behind the technology. I think some of the recent discussions are around the idea of having a sort of bubble which would protect users through unwanted interactions, but that might not always kind of filter out some of these big problems. And then the question, of course, is that as reality in the kind of physical and virtual worlds blend together, what are the legal and kind of policing actions? You know, there's a big role, I think, for criminology within this, discussing, you know, if these things become more immersive and more shared, who's going to police them? And this, of course, relates then to big questions around governance frameworks for data, around these kind of metaverse systems, who uses that data and who controls it. There are also questions that might arise around connectivity across national jurisdictions and data protection laws. You know, Meta and the EU don't get on because of these kind of problems around data sharing and compliance with the general data protection regulations and other forms of regulation. And of course, the problem is that many technology laws are reactive. They basically let the market decide what the technology is, and then we'll step in if a problem emerges later. This creates big problems when the sort of the genie's out of the bottle. You know, once you establish these things, it becomes difficult for the law to play catch up. And often we can discuss things in terms of a need for what's sometimes called real-time technology assessment or responsible research and innovation that are very popular within European circles. You know, who are the stakeholders, who is consulted, who has control, how are democratic norms upheld in privately owned spaces? How do we tackle things such as fake news? How do we dismantle echo chambers which create social isolation and other forms of kind of social problems as a result? And then finally, there's the question around what are the influence on pro or anti-social behavior change. So I wrote a book recently on looking at the role of empathy and ethics. So thinking about virtual reality or the pro-social uses of virtual reality. You know, it has been described as an empathy machine, and obviously Professor Billinghurst's research is very much about expanding that empathic engagement through the technology. In psychology, we can talk about this idea of what's called a construal level theory. One of the construal level on its simplest description is that the closer something seems, the more concrete it is, and the further away it seems, the more abstract it is. That is true of literally anything. So if you think about a holiday you're going to have a year from now, you think about, you know, walking on a sandy beach and drinking cocktails with umbrellas in them. Think about the same holiday 2 days from now. The holiday didn't change, but your reaction to it did, because now you're thinking about where is your passport and have you had your injections and those kinds of things. But this idea that thinking about people who are socially distant from you, either separated by language or geography, those can be reduced through this type of technology. And so that has a potential pro-social behavior change advantages. But of course, the embodiment and immersion of that technology heightens that behavioral influence, and so could basically increase the pro or antisocial behavior change that we often experience in gaming environments. So the question again is an empirical question. Do those effects persist? Does it depend on the length of time and depth of exposure to something like the metaverse? We can list tons of negative effects around addiction, loneliness, or isolation, but does it have potential positive benefits? I'm interested in the idea of using this to actually improve the ethical values of people by allowing them to explore different types of interactions imaginatively to promote empathic engagement, and thus develop kind of new moral habits. Essentially, we can become better people as a result of using this if it is designed correctly. And so just finally, in terms of conclusions, we have this thing called the Collingridge dilemma. Collingridge was a professor of technology studies at Aston University, and he basically said you have two options. You can either allow a technology to run, which we then can't control, or we can control the technology from the start and then see how it develops. The argument is that we should have a stronger democratic control of technology, that we shouldn't leave it up to a company, particularly a monopoly, to decide how it is designed. And so some stronger sense of social control over how it develops, I think, is important. We also need to understand whether or not there is a market for it, whether or not public trust in the companies that run it is important. And we also have to understand what public attitudes are to privacy and data collection. And then we also need anticipatory legal frameworks that relate to privacy rights, neurological rights, and the coordination and sale of data that comes from these things, particularly as you say, we start to develop technologies that can collect bodily data and sensory data and how that is used. So yes, I think those are the kind of key issues. And thank you very much. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Matthew. It was wonderful speech, and you paid the attention on the topic which we should consider both as a researcher and as a users of such a technology, also as a parents of heavy user such a technology. So thank you very much. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
And now I would like invite Carlos. Carlos going to talk about impact of metaverse in education and training in the virtual twin society. Please.
Stage is yours.
Stage is yours.
You have to unmute yourself also. On left down top.
Yes, can you see my screen?
That's right, correct. We see your screen and we hear you. Sounds great.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's really a pleasure to stay here, and especially today and at this moment, you know. And I want to thank you, the organization, to Anna and Carolina and all these incredible people in Poland. And believe me, this is really a passion for me, and especially when we talk about metaverse and education. So I would like to start. I will not repeat some things that there were explained just before me, and very, very interesting presentations. But I always like to start with some reference to my, let's say, to my references. A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. This is by Albert Einstein. So I would like to make some references about some, let's say, philosophical things. For instance, how the artists or the classicals understood this kind of dream of how to create a new universe, a meta-universe, or ephemeral universe in their own mind. So the body that we temporarily inhabit has been described by some as a temporary home or an unbearable prison for others. Material restrictions will prevent us from giving way to our imagination, our most impossible disillusions, dreams, and fantasies, free ourselves from the body, inhabit our spaces, and teleport from one world to another just in one click. So when we see, I love to make analysis about the artists, creators in the past, for instance, how they understood the life or the universe that they were able to develop by themselves, like Leonardo da Vinci, or then Bosco, that they were really visionaries about what somebody now said metaverse, but they had the potential, the vision to create incredible worlds. And what about Dali? Dali was this, I don't know if you have tested this experience, that was one of the very best first experiences developed by a VR laboratory, the universe of Dali in virtual reality, which is really impressive. And all the experiences about the films and all the things that were developed in the almost 20 years ago with incredible advantages. So it's something that is like a new complex ecosystem based on many convergent technologies, and is not the end as itself. So we are not talking only about isolated technologies like virtual reality or augmented reality. We are talking about very, very complex ecosystem. So, okay, let's start the journey beyond the imagination. So during the pandemic, we have learned a lot of experiences, how to move very, very fast and interact, the relations between the students and the teachers, how to interact in this new environment using different technologies like Zoom, Teams, or whatever, how to interact and how to control and manage all these things. So the new reality has been changing quite a lot. And I think we have to learn about this reality, because this is really the experience. It's not the technology, it's how we can interact and how we can live with the technology, because the theory is one thing and the reality is absolutely the other. So one thing is really amazing is that the metaverse does not exist. We are all agree about that, but everybody is talking about that. So how we have pictures, examples, experiences about the number of users in the metaverse, growing figures, experiences, if the metaverse doesn't exist. So we cannot say one thing and just the opposite at the same time. So we have to be agreed about what we are talking about, or we are going to lose a future opportunity about what we can really think that it could be some positive issues. So the main thing is what is the metaverse? Or if we need the metaverse? Well, I can tell you that almost 20 years ago, I was working for some governments creating a virtual wall just for the students. That was a platform where the students can, you can see here, they can interact in a web page in a virtual wall with 3D environments and 2D environments. And they have tools, they have libraries, they have publishers, they have games, and they have 3D immersive virtual tours. And this was developed 20 years ago. And I cannot say this is a metaverse. This is much more than a metaverse. And we have around 100,000 students working online. So we developed a lot of avatars, a lot of tools, and just focus in real problems about the energy, sustainability, integration, and a lot of things. So the thing is, today we have a lot of tools. So let's say immersive platforms or just platforms that we can use to interact between teachers or students, like Vivrela, Frame VR, AltSpace, Engage, or whatever, that are simple, let's say, tools, platforms that we can use for integration, for learning spaces, or whatever. But from my point of view, this is not a metaverse, okay? Is my opinion. Okay, so the main issue is why we need the metaverse. So we need to understand the why, just to look for the what and how we are going to implement. So we have, let's say, the potential to interconnect socially people, students, or teachers all around the world, without traveling, just getting better experiences, or it's just because it's physically impossible to move around these places, or because we are going to test or we are going to train some experiences or projects in a dangerous or complex situation. So there is another big debate about that the metaverse will be the Web 3.0. I'm completely against that, because one thing is the web World Wide Web environment. Another thing is, in theory, the metaverse. So I was working 20 years ago for a company at .com, and I think that the people that more than, let's say, 40 years old can understand what happened during this time. So I go a little bit faster. So there are, from my point of view, we have 4 main pillars where we have to understand what is the metaverse and the future of meta education. One thing is presence. And this is really an issue, because when we talk about presence, we need to understand what is immersion and to be inside the world. And to be inside the world is not a flat screen, is not a headset, is where you can move, you can hear an environment, and the sound is according to the environment, and you have to interact with different things. We have 5, 6 senses, and most of the applications that we are using, we are only watching. We are only observers. We are not part of the immersive world. And this is a big mistake that newcomers, new boomers are talking about a lot of crazy things without having an idea about that. So engagement is another thing, but if we don't have immersion, we don't have engagement. How we are going to engage just with, let's say, half avatars, half body avatars, just with these incredible, stupid faces that cannot send any kind of feeling to the body. So we are human beings, you know, when we burn, we touch the very first feeling that a kid when born touch with the mother is the hand. This is something that we cannot do. We can, let's say, make some dreams with the brain, but it's not the same. So experimental playing and coming together reality. Well, about meta education, well, I think it's better to talk about during the QA session. So I will ask you, well, sorry, I will share with you some experiences. 3 years ago, I started to work with educators in VR, and we had the very first experience with people all around the world, it was like 24 hours without stopping talking with people from many countries and learning experiences. And it was really the very first experience for me. But believe me, something which is important is the five sense interaction. Our minimum 3 and 6 degrees of freedom. We have to move, we have to feel, the sound is important. The feeling and the sound. Without sound, we don't know where we are. And this is very, very important. And another thing is the world, believe me, the world, the earth is not flat. And the metaverse used to be flat. So it's a big fake again. So when we are playing in a real world, the real world is a geode. You know, it's something very complex, and there are heights and there are cities, and it's not flat. And the other thing, well, everybody said, when the people is talking about figures, well, Forbes predicts that in 2-3 years, 26% of the world population is going to spend 1 hour in the metaverse. For what? You know how much means 26% is about 2.6 billion people in the world. Where is these people located? So this is crazy. Forbes said it, everybody said, this crazy guy Zuckerberg said he's going to sell a lot of scale of devices. For what? So please be serious. And we have a compromise when we are talking about education and to educate the kids and the students and the teachers. So this is a concept that we are developing in our company about what is, let's say, a global metaverse concept for education, where we have the real world, where we have authoring tools, we have interactions, where we have human interfaces, when we have to work on standards. This is something that let's say the main providers don't want to talk about the standards. They want to create their own standard. Facebook, own standard, Google, own standard, Mac, own standard. How we are going to integrate all these common contents in those, because all we know that when you are working with Unity or Unreal for, let's say, HP, Pico, or Oculus, it's not compatible 100% with this and that and that. So you have to readapt all this. So they are not the standards, but you have patterns, you have assets, you have devices, experience, platforms, transactions, infrastructures, Internet of Things, Internet of Behaviors. I will talk about this just in a moment. So at the end, we have a very, very complex architecture that has to be defined and has to be connected just to say, well, these are the basic of the metaverse, but it's not a virtual world, believe me. I'm sorry about that. So, well, I will go a little yes, we are talking about this incredible thing is the avatars. Avatars matters. So we are, let's say, human beings. So how you can imagine an avatar is a 0.5% body that cannot move in one day and another day. And what about the identity? I think identity is something that we will talk later during the session. One thing, as I mentioned before, is 5 senses, which is very important. And I can tell you, no more than 5% of the applications that you can find for free in the network are working, let's say, with interactivity, with immersive sound, and 360 degrees experiences, okay? And this is really an issue. So I will go faster. Well, somebody had been talking about neuroscience, that it was in the very beginning. I'm very good friend of these people. Galea is the product. They are doing something incredible. And it's great. But what's going on when your brain is not ready to understand some impacts, some situations, because you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the culture, and you don't know how to understand their reactions. So somebody said, and I said, okay, it's great because I'm going to eliminate all the interactions and all the barriers. But if the brain is sending wrong messages, who is going to correct that? So we need machine learning, and we need some corrections to help to understand all these mistakes and all this prevention. Well, yes, somebody was talking about this picture, so it's enough with the picture, and about Galea. Well, Internet of Behaviors, this is really a drama. So, because you know that when somebody's taking all your data from the headset or your data from your brain, and somebody said, okay, it's sure, it's assured because in the cloud. But we said, it's in the cloud. No, it's in the cloud. No, it's in the desert, it's in horizon, in Arizona, or it's in the ocean, and somebody's putting all this data in some place that we don't know what they are doing with that. So the cloud is not existent. Are big computers that can manipulate everything. So where is my control about all these crazy things? So Gartner is talking about one of the main trends for the next years is how the Internet of Behaviors is really an issue, because Internet of Things can take every sense, every single message from our human body and our expressions or whatever, and they can manipulate it. And this is really a big problem. Just, I want to finish. Just, I will tell you that we have been working with many governments during more than 20 years. We started just 6 years ago to collaborate with the Ministry of Education of United Arab Emirates, creating smart education labs where we put all the technology together to teach the teachers how to train the students to use the 3D environments to create and to print with 3D printers, and to use the VR, AR experiences just in one. And for us, one thing is very important is train the teachers, find together with the teachers the benefits and learn with the students together. This is really an issue. We are been working for Lithuania, Estonia, Germany, Spain, India, Russia. We have agreements with a lot of universities, and we learn every single day from all these experiences. And I will finalize with this. Well, this is the most amazing experience that we developed for the, let's say, for educated students in real life in classical music. It was developed together with the Escuela de Música Reina Sofía International School, and we created let's say, an immersive environment where we recreate a live concert from a classical orchestra, playing music about Tchaikovsky, Mozart, and Respighi, and we put it in a different context, and we are moving these experiences from different schools. And the students are living in first presence all this experience. If somebody is interested, I can share this experience with you. So thank you very much. And I will say that the world as we have created is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. This is what Albert Einstein said. I completely agree. Thank you very much, and will be a pleasure to share all these experiences with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much. I guess each of your project could be the topic of separate presentation. And me personally, I would be really interested in listening about it, hearing about it, because it sounds great. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, Andy, it's going to talk about reading social media marketing messages as stimulated self within a metaverse. So please.
All right. Yeah, hi. Let me share my screen.
Right, we hear you.
Yep. All right. Let me share my PowerPoint.
Correct. We see your screen.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
So can you see the cover page?
That's right. It's correct.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for giving me opportunity to share some of my thoughts about the Metaverse with all those panel. So today I'm going to talk about how we as a human process or understand or react toward message within the Metaverse. My name is Andy John. I'm a assistant professor of marketing at Northern Illinois University. And I generally research about the artificial intelligence and virtual reality in the context of marketing. So although many of the speakers already cover very important trends about the Metaverse, let me highlight several other things that I'm going to highlight. So I just want to discuss why we already know that there have been virtual reality technology or similar technology long before. But why Metaverse so hot today? That's the question. And I list up several things as a reason for that. So first thing is that technological advancement we see is really helping the trend put the Metaverse so fast. So there are so many advanced technology that made so many things that are not possible before, not possible. So technological advancement is one reason. And also there are a huge number of users within the Metaverse. So, I mean, especially young generations are so used to using and playing with all those new technologies. So number of users within the Metaverse or number of potential users for the potential new Metaverse are so high. And also there are some financial opportunity because people can go to Metaverse and make money, like buying and selling non-fungible token or NFT. And also we should not forget about the some kind of hype promoted by big conglomerate, because company like Meta, previously Facebook, is trying to promote Metaverse, although there are many discussion about if there is any substantial thing that the Facebook has to promote the Metaverse. And and the other thing is kind of related to the quote from Albert Einstein, Carlos Scheer. Maybe it's not technology that is changing, that is promoting Metaverse. Maybe it's people who are changing to adapt the new technology or new universe, the Metaverse. So that could be the one topic to discuss. And from the scholar perspective, then I'm asking this question: why study Metaverse? Because for me, I see the fundamental difference between Metaverse and the physical reality. And what could be the fundamental difference? Many scholars already pointed out that everything is malleable within the Metaverse, and that's very important. And that's the big difference between physical reality and the Metaverse. Because everything is digital within the Metaverse, anything that is conceivable can be manipulated in any way we imagine. And that's one reason why we need to study, because something that is not happening in the reality is happening in the Metaverse. Then the knowledge and the reasoning that we apply to understanding of something that is happening in the reality may not be applicable to understanding of what's going on in the Metaverse. And also, I'm interested in the self-identity. I mean, malleability of self-identity. So within the Metaverse, people love to play with new identity. So any person in the Metaverse can become whatever they want to become. So they want to become like any popular cartoon character or movie character or anyone they can imagine they can become within the Metaverse. Then the question from this thing is that in this malleable Metaverse world, how do people think, feel, act? Actually, this question can be very general because this question can be asked in the real world context. But again, what I'm talking about is that
our understanding about this question, the answer to this question, and how people think, feel, act, should maybe not be applicable to understanding of how people think, feel, act within the metaverse. In terms of playing with the self-identity, again, this is a screenshot of the VR chat. So sometimes I went to VR chat and play with some cartoon character, but I can definitely see that people are really enjoying playing in a new identity or some identity that they borrow from their favorite movie or cartoon. So this is so popular. Playing with new identity is so popular and so widespread on the metaverse platforms. So before I moving to my research question, I want to share this this one story. So one Korean professor asked one young student to depict his personality. And then actually, instead of answering the question first, the student asked back, which one, my online self, my offline self? I mean, if we ask like older generation, probably, I remember that a long time ago, I was talking about, different identity across different situations. But, some older, professor asked me, I mean, we don't want to change our identity, but if we ask the same question, the young generation who are used to playing with all this new technology, like social media, virtual reality, game, etc., they might be asking back like this, which one, my online self, my offline self? Even in my empirical research that I published in other papers, I found that young generation has clear conception of two different identity across different situations, like online situation, offline situation, and etc. Then given this, then the metaverse identity is neither a substitute of real identity or virtual identity. Maybe for the young generation, for anyone maybe, it is another identity. I think that's the core difference between the discussion about the virtual reality and metaverse today. Because some people is asking, oh, metaverse is the same as virtual reality. We already done that like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah, maybe technology is not radically different from before, but the way we thinking about the technology and the way we behave within the technology may be different. So everything that we see in the real world is, everything we do in the real world can be mimicked within the metaverse, like hanging out in a playground, climbing, painting, traveling, and economic activity like buying, selling. And also, in the real life, we watch television, we listen to radio, and also we access social media, and then we engage in some social media activity. All those things, even this media consumption activity, can be done within the metaverse, like viewing social media, watching TV, watching cinema within the metaverse. Then as a marketer or as a marketing scholar, maybe we can we can consider the metaverse as a new marketing channel for the situation. Although this is totally not new. This is not new at all, considering metaverse or virtual reality as a new marketing channel. But what I'm approaching metaverse as a marketing channel, the approach I'm taking in understanding metaverse as a marketing channel is that maybe we need to come up with a new theoretical psychological model to understand how people consume the media message within the metaverse. So this is one example of company using metaverse as a marketing channel. So this is a screenshot of the made in 2022, actually this year, and the Samsung actually built some kind of virtual store within the one metaverse platform, Sandbox. And then what they did is that they opened a big store within the metaverse, and then it's like a playground. Anyone can come there and then play with their avatar, like engaging in some kind of gaming activity. And then if they won the game, that they earn the NFT as a reward. And also, the thing that interests me personally is that within the store, there is a media within the store, and that media, like a cinema that you see here, can be a channel to send us some kind of advertisement or other marketing messages, just like we watch commercial on television, the reality. Then my question here is that, okay, so we play within an avatar and we enter the metaverse, and then we encounter marketing message just as we do in the reality. But when we see this marketing message, are we processing this message as an actual real self, or are we processing the same message as a simulated or metaverse self? Then there's no clear empirical evidence answering this kind of question. So I just came up with this research idea trying to answer this question. So again, just the research problem is that the external psychological model that explain the cognitive information processing do not address the interaction between multiple malleable self-identity, like within the metaverse. We have real self, we have a simulated self. If we have, if we multiply our self-identity, then how do we process the marketing or persuasive message within the metaverse? So, I just want to conceptualize, the phenomenon that I'm trying to address. So, I mean, within the metaverse, there can be cinema, like there can be, media, like a screen, and that there can be like a, persuasive message, like a eat healthy, something like that. So there can be a message within the metaverse. And then if we come across, we encounter this kind of message, then, there will be, simulated cell, like a metaverse cell, like a Lisa Simpson in the metaverse. Anyone can become Lisa Simpson, like in the VR chat. So when playing with, when using this avatar, Lisa Simpson avatar, they maybe play with this identity, Lisa Simpson identity. And then while they're playing with this identity, if they encounter this kind of, marketing message, then are they going to process that message as Lisa Simpson? Or we shouldn't forget about the actual self. I mean, in the real life, we are here in the physical reality playing with the avatar. But at the same time, there's a Lisa Simpson, but at the same time, there's an actual self still looking at the same message. Then maybe it's possible that these two different selves interacting with each other to influence how we understand the persuasive message. And also, I propose that we briefly talk about the control level theory. Actually, maybe the distance between the actual self and the simulated self also will influence how we understand the same message within the metaverse. If our actual self is radically different from simulated self, or if our actual self is kind of similar to the simulated self, maybe that distance will influence how we process the message within the metaverse. And this is not like something that is, so all these ideas are actually founded based on several, psychological theory, including active self-account, authored by Wheeler. And what is actually talking about is that our brain has a different conception of the self-identity. Although there's a one me, actually within our mind, there are multiple selves. And that's not like a disorder. That's actually natural. And everyone has multiple selves. And for example, maybe at one moment, maybe one is American, and in terms of personality, extrovert, and also I'm reminding myself as a husband to my wife, and also etc. There are many aspects of self-identity activated at one moment. But if we enter metaverse, maybe there are different identity activated, but not entirely replacing the actual self. Maybe our self-identity conception is changed a little bit within the metaverse, activating different aspects of the same person's identity. So maybe according to active self-account, when we enter metaverse, then it's not that like actual self is completely replaced by simulated self. Maybe different selves coexisting to influence the way we are understanding the message within the metaverse. So research question that I'm trying to answer within my study is that how do individuals cognitively process persuasive message within the metaverse? In more detail, how do actual self and simulated metaverse self interactively influence the processing of the media message within the metaverse? And to come up with the hypothesis, I'm also, I'm also trying to base my study on several core psychological theories. One, self-enhancement theory, and second, self-verification theory. So self-enhancement theory is just basically, saying that we have, innate tendency to see ourselves positively. We always promote ourselves as a positive self. We want to feel good about ourselves all the time. That's what the self-enhancement theory is. And many actually huge volume of empirical evidence is actually supporting, even from the VR study, supporting this, hypothesis. We have innate tendency to see ourselves positively and also try to feel good about ourselves. That's why, many of people enter metaverse to become what they want to become. They want to become some desirable, better self within the metaverse. So self-enhancement theory is well supported. But at the same time, there is another library theory called self-verification theory. Basically, what is talking about is that humans want to maintain their self-view even when their self-view is negative. So, for example, here's a person, and he thinks that he's kind of lazy, and he has very negative self-view, and he doesn't have any good favorable perception about his self. But if someone comes in and then say that, oh, you're not lazy, you are smart and you can do anything. Actually, within their research, what they found is that if you are telling them something that is opposite or something that is not different from what they're thinking about, their self-identity, then they will actually react against that kind of message. If someone is come to me and they're telling me that you are smart, you are lazy, while I'm thinking I'm not smart, I'm lazy, then there will be some kind of psychological reaction, negative, a psychological reaction denying that kind of message. In other words, if we apply this thing to metaverse theory, even if you enjoy becoming someone desirable, some other within the metaverse, there is a message saying that targeting your simulated self, right? Within the metaverse, there is a message, and the message is targeting your simulated self. Maybe you are trying to see the same message as your actual self, because by the time you are processing the persuasive self, your simulated self is not really occupying occupying the position in understanding that message. Maybe when it comes to understanding some kind of message, maybe your actual self is stronger in influencing how that person is understanding the message. So what I'm going to try to do is that as a solution to this to conflict.
Andy, excuse me, I just want to remind you that you already there is not enough time. So
I'm gonna wrap it up. Yep.
Important thing, please.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna maybe these two life conflict between these two selves maybe reconciled by the distance between two selves. So I'm going to use the distance between two selves, actual self and simulated self, as a reconciling factor between these two different self motives. So I designed the study going through this procedure using VR application. I'm going to have participants enter the metaverse and they experience this new self, and then this is a screenshot. They and then the simulation is like a virtual time travel. So they're gonna virtually travel to their future, and then they're gonna become their future self, like a desirable future self. And then within the VR, there will be, just as reality, there is a screen, and then there is some social media message, and I'm gonna record their gauge duration, like a duration of their attention to, each of these messages, so that to find out how much they are paying attention to the message within the metaverse. And that's it. Sorry for going over the time. So if you have any suggestion for this study, please let me know. So I'm conducting this study, and I'm trying to get as many suggestions as possible to improve the study design and etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your presentation reminds us that here in our laboratory, quite recently, we even had a violent discussion about the virtual identities, and your presentation showed that still there is more question than answer. So thank you very much. It's really important problem. And now I would like to invite Tomasz Gackowski with a presentation about meta research in Metaverse, meta dilemma in future research. Please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here and to speak after such a marvelous presentations. So I would like to share some thoughts and dilemmas about the future research project that we as a social researchers will conduct to help creators, designers, programmers, policy makers create a new, I hope, a better world in or with Metaverse. I would like to present you some framework, which I call for this presentation a dilemma approach. How many problems do we need to think through and resolve before designing a study and making certain assumptions and hypotheses? Meta, as a prefix, means beyond, above, super. Words with such a prefix promise very much. When you combine the word meta with universe, we suddenly discover a new dimension of our being through or based on or thanks to technology, from smartphones to head-mounted devices and tactile suits and haptic gloves. So let's hope that this meta universe, metaverse, will not be a world from the well-known movie, as you see the picture, Player One, which is a dystopian world with slums, poverty, shortness of breath, and pressure to push. How we are going to analyze such a world? So, word of isolation. I guess that this is a great definition of our last 2 years. Virtual reality helps us to survive in this dark time. Not only VR, but probably virtual technology when I'm thinking about also computers and smartphones and so on. In the future, Metaverse will make us hope, maybe vaccinated, immune from such a feeling like loneliness, lack of close contact, feeling of depression, or escapism. I hope so. So thanks to VR solutions, we understood that specifics of COVID-19, for instance, yeah? I'm not thinking about knowledge about the virus, but understanding how it looks like, how it works, how it develops, how it changes in a time of transmission. Thanks to the VR, we were able to do it faster and quicker and to create this great advantage, which is vaccination. Do not forget about many caveats. According, for example, to Mitch Princeton, who is a chief of science officer in American Psychology Association, he said that the use of 3D digital avatars in the metaverse carries another problem. Being able to modify your likeness to project a version of yourself that differs from real life can be a pretty dangerous and scary thing, not only for adults, but especially for teenagers in particular. I guess that what other people think about you in your teenager time, it is very important for them. So the idea of being able to fictionalize your identity and to receive very different feedback can really mess with a teenager activity and identity in this world. I would like to share some part of our research that we conducted. The aim of our project was to compare the learning outcomes of the same content in the form of traditional analog lesson and the form of virtual reality lesson with the use of head-mounted devices. The study included one biology lesson conducted in 4 groups of a dozen or so people, and one biology lesson in VR carried out individually on 75 people. Validated measurements was 75 in the end. The respondents in both groups completed the same knowledge test, then a questionnaire before class regarding knowledge of an attitude to new technologies, and a partial similar questionnaire after the lessons that examined the mood and feeling immediately after connect with VR technology or participation in the traditional lessons. The researchers used detailed observations, sheets referring to the subject's behavior, the course, and the dynamics of the lesson. Based on that survey results, we postpartum additionally divided respondents into enthusiasts and non-enthusiasts of virtual technologies. These obtained results were analyzed statistically through lesson type, traditional and VR, respondent type, enthusiast and non-enthusiast, and the question time. So let's jump to some results. Were slightly better for analog group and for the non-enthusiast group. What is more, VR encourages the learning of VR skeptics who quickly discover a passion for exploring and learning. Of course, there is plenty of things to verify. For instance, the so-called retention effect, how easy, for instance, is to remember knowledge gained during VR experience. This is a remarkable advantage in innovative teaching methods, but we have to still work on that. Of course, there is plenty issues and that we have to deal with. For example, should virtual technology teach skills rather than knowledge? For instance, procedural practical knowledge, analytical and problem solving, or maybe some soft skills, which would be consistent with the turn in education in general. I guess that teacher can help children push beyond their comfort zones and tackle academic and social challenges based on the individual's strengths and difficulties. And the teachers and caregivers can link with the children and learning with what they already know. The Metaverse is not a replacement for teachers. Instead, it is a tool through which teachers can spark learning and social interaction in new ways. So in the book that I recommend you strongly, Shared Fantasy, Role-Playing Games and Social Worlds, Gary Allen Fine writes about 3 levels in which we can think player in the games, which is a perfect canvas, I guess, for thinking about the future metaverse research. The first of all, a person, who we are daily. The second one is a player, how we behave in the context of the game, how we respect or execute the rules of the play, how we use specific configurations or cheats in this game. And the third approach, third perspective, is character, who we play, how we fit into the narrative, where is our place in the story, and how it affects us. The us is meaning me as a Tomasz, or us, or me, or he, as a, for example, NBA player. I always dream of being an NBA player. Alan Fine writes that the player's research at the given moment must consider how strongly each of these layers affects him. Yeah. So player, the subject of the study, not researcher who is analyzing the player at a specific moment, because it is so fluid and very variable over the time. And the second approach to human behavior in the virtual world is a tension between 2 perspectives, agency and entering in the world, and a plot so-called immersion. Active playing is considered by some researchers, for example, Michael Matthias and Andrew Stern in a great also book, Interaction and Narrative, as acting against immersion, and the optimal action from the point of view of winning very often break the sense of identification with the character and puts a person more in the role of player than a character, referring to the categories that I used in the previous slide. It is a challenging dilemma for a gamer and researcher and his conclusions that is made through the research. So to sum up, what type of perspective we can draw? So first of all, the first question is who and what we are testing for. And I am using the word meta-perception because meta-understanding is a quite big challenge between these three approaches: person, players, and character. The second thing is to what extent how we conclude when we collect all this knowledge, which I called meta-knowledge. And of course, whose meta-knowledge? User, researcher, or designer of the experience that we are analyzing right now. And the third field, is the being aware that the subject can be a researcher, but it also cannot be combined at the same time. Spectator can be a creator, but it cannot simply in the same time, or it can be, you can change it very easily over the time. And how are we going to treat Metaverse as an environment, as a field to make a research, as a research, the option, the object to research, or maybe a variable or constant in our research project that we cannot own it, yeah, we cannot ignore it. So we see that there is many layers and dimensions, not only from social researchers, but also for the representatives from other disciplines. So what is the calling for social researchers? I think that we are analyzing skills for a changing world, but how to measure? And this is the last two slides that I want to propose. According to the great guidebook, which is named the title Becoming Brilliant, there's a rule of 6 C's according to Hirsch and Empathic, yeah, that we have to take into consideration. The first of all, collaboration, because collaboration reflects how social engagement is central to human nature as a core for learning, community building, and cultural understanding. The second field is communication, speaking, writing, reading, listening. They are essential in our daily lives, yeah? In early childhood, language skills develop through back and forth conversation between children and their parents. The third field, content. Traditional content includes reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and the arts. But it's also important to recognize learning to learn or execute functional skills, including attention and working memory. The fourth one would be critical thinking. Strong critical thinkers can evaluate the quality of information they receive and ideally use those skills both inside and outside of the classroom, which can be created in Metaverse. Creative innovation is a synthesis of the content and critical thinking, yeah? And the last one, confidence, which I would, according to the Hirsch and Empathic, define that perseverance and passion for the long-term goals. And if you combine all these approaches, I guess that your project, your social research project, can be remarkably better without them. The same as also the attributes that we can point it out. Is it the experiences, how much active or passive, how engaging, and how distracting. Also, I'm thinking about the education in virtual reality, yeah? That we have always asked ourselves how much they are active, how they are distracting, how they are feeling disconnected, and how they are meaningful, how they are social or maybe solo, yeah? How they are iterative or unchanged. And the final one, joyful or boring. So to sum up, this is not only the 6 fields, but also the 3 approaches that we have to choose in the very beginning of our meta-research dilemmas. So meta-researcher, meta-user, and metaverse. It is critical to consider how researchers can inform designers now so that forthcoming educational products and offerings in the metaverse are high quality and optimized. And of course, researchers should provide the answers to the questions such as how to create, how to develop, how to improve, finally, how to understand users and create them back and forth. And the last thing I want to repeat that Mark Zuckerberg wasn't first, yeah? We know that his promise of the future, many video games delivered years ago, I'm not thinking only about the Fortnite, Roblox, and so on, yeah? But what we should focus on, and I also in the same club like Matthew is that system that we are creating or we are talking about it should incentivize these big companies, big tech, to use these brilliant tools to actually improve society now. But instead of that, right now they are incentivized to make a profit, which the presentation of Andy is a great example. According to Albert Skip-Rizzo, who is a psychologist who serves as a director for medical virtual reality and UCC Institute for Creative Technology, and at the same time, Mitch Princeton, which I also already quoted before, from American Psychology Association, they agree that onus is on the tech companies to prioritize the safety of the users over their own incentive to turn a profit. Being supportive in such a sphere, it is the most important thing and topic for all these big tech companies. And the question is whether designers, policymakers, educators, and parents, that we all can mold intentionally and appropriate opportunities that are truly educational within this new and exciting context. So when we are thinking about the metaverse, first of all, we should think also about the meta education. And that's the great example that how I then linked with Carlos' presentation before. And thank you. That's all from my side.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. So we are very great to show all this meta dimension. There are so many of them that we really don't have to be afraid that we will lack of research fields and clear research topic.
Sure.
So for now, I would like to open the discussion. Please, if you have any question to our speakers, so please do not hesitate, ask them now. If you prefer, you of course can write them on chat. If you prefer this way, we can.
Of course, we've got our questions, but we cannot be so dominant on this talk.
Yeah, we don't want monopolize the
That's
discourse.
right. Okay, so maybe I will start because I have a question, first of all, to Mark. I was thinking about the empathic virtual reality and virtual technology. Would you agree with the idea that the social media are empathic or not? Because I'm wondering about these challenges that we are facing right now.
I think social media can certainly create an emotional response, but the empathy isn't just about creating the response, it's also about understanding it as well. So for example, if I'm viewing a social media, I may feel an emotional response to the media, but the media needs to be able to help me understand the emotion of the people who are depicted in the media to create an empathic experience. So, if I'm seeing a meme that somebody's posted that makes me feel angry, but the people in that meme may not actually be angry, then it doesn't really mean I'm having an empathic experience. So it's not just about creating the emotion, it's also about understanding the emotion of the people or what's being represented in the medium. So that's why VR is so powerful for creating an empathic experience, because it allows you to share another person's point of view and so much more easily understand what they might be feeling in a situation.
I was always, asking myself, is the social media made me a better person and enabled me to feel more empathy for other people, or maybe in the opposite, yeah, because of what we are right now witnessing in our social media because of this Ukrainian and Russian conflict war. It is quite incredible, especially in Poland, when we are serving all the help to the Ukrainians, and so we are deliberating and thinking all the time about it. So maybe other questions, other speakers we can ask ourselves to each other, because that was what I did in the moment. Yeah, Mark, sure. Go on. And Matthew.
I was just going to add a bit on the empathy angle, because empathy has different levels, but on a most basic level, it's a physiological response. And it's also something that can be manipulated. It isn't automatically good having an empathetic response, because, as you say, you could use that to cause suffering as well as to have kind of pro-social benefits. So again, the more immersive, the more engaging these technologies become, the more open we are to be manipulated as well as to have some of the positive benefits. It's a question about who controls that. It becomes more important for that reason. Sorry.
It's like I see that Peter Wójcik, our friend from Krakow. Hi there. Stage is yours.
Hi. So I have two questions for two different speakers, actually. So I think I'm just going to go one by one, right? So first question would be to Professor Matthew Cotton. And it's just out of curiosity, seeing your presentation and all of the ethical issues that you pointed out with the metaverse, I'm just wondering, are you considering the bias that society and especially the sphere of communication, the internet has on negative emotions nowadays? For example, something that's really being discussed in Poland right now, again, I guess we're going to come back to this multiple times, the Russia-Ukraine crisis and the sanctions, is that, you know, people say there's not enough sanctions on Russia, we need more, etc. And there's a discussion going, so is this caused by the Western world generally always viewing itself in a bad perspective, right? We're always the worst, we have to do more, we have to do better, right? Just because we have no propaganda and we consider all of the ups and downs. And then social media, as well as traditional media, tend to focus on the downs. They tend to focus on strong emotions, and those are negative emotions, right? So at least in my opinion, there's a bias there. We tend to be biased towards the negative. So is that something that you're considering with your research? Are you like considering, okay, so there's this theoretical issue, but then again, this is not the real problem. It's just in the social media sphere. It's just people being paranoid about this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when we think about, well, generally when people think about new technologies, they tend to divert either to a kind of utopian or a dystopian vision of what it's going to look like in the future. And the reality is always something a bit more complicated in the middle. I think what's interesting about the metaverse is you have this kind of the Zuckerberg model of it's all going to be wonderful and we're all going to come together and it'll be peace on earth and this wonderful kind of harmony. And then like miserable social scientists like me are always like, oh no, you need to think about all of these problems that it's going to create. I think, yeah, there is a risk that people like me become Luddites, you know, become anti-technology, and I don't want to kind of go down that route because there is lots of promise. I think it's really just, in this case, it's a skepticism about whether or not big tech companies have our best interests at heart. And whether or not we need some kind of control of those things. Whether or not the broader question around bias in society and communication trending towards the negative, I mean, that's possibly true, but when it comes to the Ukraine crisis, what was interesting actually is that, you know, the West kind of stood as one quite quickly, and it wouldn't have done so without mass communication, without a shared sense of common purpose, driven in part by public opinion emerging united through social media. So, you know, America would not have interfered with what was going on in Russia unless there was this kind of collective sense of responsibility. So there are pro-social benefits from that kind of collective action through a shared platform like this as well. So I think that's, you know, there are positives as well as negatives.
And the second question, Peter?
Yeah, so my other question was for Mr. Carlos Fernandez. I just wanted to relate to something that we do at my company, 1000 Realities, which actually was really like in line with your presentation. And I wanted to ask, basically what we're doing is this thing that we call NUX, Natural User Experience. And what it is a virtual reality experience combined with a basically chatbot combined with text-to-speech and speech-to-text engine. So the result is that you can actually talk to the characters in the virtual world, right? So instead of, and we were sort of researching a platform to take away the holographic UI, the standard 2D UI that you see in VR applications all the time, but instead have you talk to characters, right? So instead of like, I don't know, for example, suppose you're in a game and you want an item, you need a hammer or something. So instead of just, pulling it out of thin air or clicking a button and it suddenly appears in your hand, then you ask an actual character for that item and they kind of say, okay, well, let me just take that and give it to you. And they physically give you the item, right? And it's as far as having conversations about anything. You can ask characters about the lore, about the world around you. You can basically ask any question. That's what we're working on right now. So would you consider this as a step in the right direction in terms of what we're talking about in terms of presence, right? In terms of like presence in the metaverse having to be as natural as possible for users to really feel and experience the metaverse in full.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. It's really a very, very good question. But first, I would like to say something to the previous one about, well, I think that we have to take some things very seriously. And the times are going to change 1000% during the next coming years. There are new things that are moving very, very fast. Everything about the world map, for instance, which is an issue. Everything about climate crisis, energy, security, and globally. So I think that today, the speak about metaverse is quite old. Today, not yesterday, today, okay? And I think we are forgetting another very, very high risk potential situation. Is that why the things are moving so fast and the people is focused on kids and the kids are not focused on education. There is a big reflection is that the kids are guided by influencers. Can you imagine somebody without any kind of knowledge about anything that is guiding all the skills and the rules? Today, believe me, it's a high risk when you are talking about something and then an enemy. I'm not going to talk about war. I'm crying every day. I'm not going to talk about this. But today, if you say something, an influencer can move thousands of people against you. So the voice of influence is 1,000 more powerful than the voice of a Nobel Prize. Who cares about the knowledge? Who cares about the Nobel Prize or Hastings? Nobody's interested in that, only influencers. So we have to make a big effort trying to explain what is the technology value, the benefits of this value to the teachers, to the parents, and to the kids. And I will tell you an example just with this question. This is really terrible. Influencers are manipulated by the big brands. And they manipulate the complete world, just like this. This is an example that is incredible. But how many profiles do you have in the social media today? You have one profile for Facebook, you have another profile for Twitter, another for Instagram. Is it the same profile? No. So if you are going to engage out the space or whatever, you are going to use a different profile, And when we talk about identity, we have to be serious about ourselves, how we want to play this game, okay? Because we are humans and our virtual world is not perfect. It's even worse. So this is something that we have to understand. Okay, I do really believe in these technologies. We are talking only about VR, not AR. So we are talking only about VR, and AR is really an incredible issue. And mixed reality, absolutely, But there is something that I really see the value is think about something that you cannot do in the real world with the same tools, okay? For instance, when we work with the students, can you imagine today, students in any country trying to hear a concept about classical music? Who cares classical music in the kids between 13 and 17? No one, okay? And who knows about Mozart or Tchaikovsky? Maybe 1, 2, 3 per school. Can you imagine in a classroom, just in the middle of the pandemic, where we have been moving around more than 10 schools with more than 1,000 students, explain the world of music. What is luthier? What is the violin? What is Austria, the different countries where all these amazing cultures were created, and to understand the feelings, the perception, the hearing, the value, how another students like them are creating music, and then you can fly, you can journey, you can journey to the future and imagine and connect everything in the same context. You can put the buildings, the history, and then the kids, believe me, 99% of the students were like, wow. And they never heard a word about Tchaikovsky, you know, and even a concert of violins. And the project was incredible because this is an experience that you cannot do in another way. So if you go to a concert, they say, wow, it's really bored with these people doing, you know, or if you are going to see the palaces or Venice or whatever, these spectacles. So for me, the most important thing is how you can create value, interact with the senses of the people, and they can manage in the way that they can. You imagine that you can have a Netflix immersive environment and you can choose, and you know when you start, but you don't know where you are going to end. And because you interact, you are part of the game, you know. And this is the thing. It's very complex when you work with all these technologies, video, VR, AR, and all these technologies. But the most important thing is we recorded all the sessions with the students just to understand the feelings, the results, how they interact with us. And then we have a new pillar to understand how we can improve. So the thing about if we are going to use avatars or whatever, for me, it's not the issue, you know, it's how to create values in this critical situation for the humanity, because kids since the last 3 years have been fighting with COVID, with the internet, with, you know, that they think that the world is very bored. Where are the initiatives? Where are the expectations? So we have to fight and we have to say, okay, there is a future, okay, but it's not an avatar, it's not an influencer. So we need to rebuild the power of Europe because we have the culture. So we need to put all this culture together again and to start to build the main pillars of our union.
All right, thank you, Carlos. I guess that it addressed the question of Peter, and Andy is having a hand up. So please, Andy.
Yeah, I think you know, I pretty much agree with, you know, what Carlos talked about, and also importance of using new technology like a virtual reality or, you know, the new concept metaverse for the education, because yeah, the influence of, you know, the media like is like, you know, influence on people, you know, young guys, you know, behavior is so powerful and so big. And I just want to comment further on that, you know. So we realize the importance of technology like a metaverse for the education. And we've been focusing on developing technology like, you know, new sensory device, you know, sensing, even, you know, brain activation. All those are also important, and especially, you know, when we are trying to understand empathy, and there are emotional empathy, there's a cognitive empathy, and you guys all discuss these two aspects as well. But the thing is, maybe we are still using the old traditional way of delivering information that we use in the reality in the metaverse. But what if, you know, the same person is differently processing the same information within the metaverse? So my question is that, you know, do you have any kind of, you know, plan about how you can improve, how you can differentiate the way you are delivering the information to young generation? And this is a question for everyone, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. And I guess that we have a time for the last question to ask before we start our game. It cannot be workshop without a game.
Okay,
so
if I can, I have a question to Matthew Cotton, if I may. First of all, I would like to say that I have impression that basically every modern committee of research ethics should implement your questions from your slides to their forms and evaluation criteria. That's the you know, we should see this question you posed. And my question is, because you were talking about the real-time law making, etc. And I was thinking about the real-time research practice recommendation, because we know that Metaverse isn't the perfect product, isn't the perfect environment, but we should, I think we're obliged to analyze it somehow. So do you have any recommendations towards social research practice, how we should, what kind of attitude we should apply to maybe analyze it better than it is?
Oh, that is a good question. Yeah, so the idea of kind of real-time technology assessment was about, if you're at the start of a sort of innovation process like the Metaverse is now, that you do a process of what is sometimes called upstream dialogue. So you engage your stakeholders at the point at which the technology is emerging, rather than trying to build it, design it, and then sell it to the public. So if you look at the cautionary tale of things like genetically modified foods or nanotechnologies, or I've worked on things like shale gas fracking, where basically these companies go, oh, this is an exciting new technology, and then have completely lost public support before they even begin. They should act as kind of cautionary tales for a company like Meta, which doesn't have, I mean, although it is a well-used social media platform, it doesn't have a lot of public trust, and it doesn't have the trust of European Union regulators and the kind of governance processes that go around it. So I think they should be very careful about building this metaverse without bringing a wide variety of stakeholders along. And that brings in the role of social science research to kind of to explore both user attitudes and some of these ethical and governance issues before it becomes a problem, essentially. So yes, so does that answer your question?
I guess that
always check.
It's address our question. Yeah. We've got 7 minutes, and I was wondering, because on your slide there was eye tracking is thinking.
Yeah,
I was wondering, because we have a tendency, especially we as a social researchers, which are using biometric devices, to sometimes treat our respondents in a separate way. So this is a GSR, this is EDA, this is eye tracking, this is EEG, and I'm very devoted to the approach that Mark presented, that we want to combine it and treat it as a synthesis. But I was wondering if we can say that when we combine the sensors, all the sensors, do we achieve of understanding? So if eye tracking is thinking, where is the understanding? If you can share your views about that.
Oh yeah, that is good. It was a slightly cheeky comment I put in you, where eye tracking is thinking. If we're looking at a technology, sort of current head-mounted displays like Oculus, which I guess would be the Meta preferred alternative, given that they own that company. The first big pool of data that they'll get is eye tracking data from within the metaverse. And it's the idea that if you track people's, their eye tracking movements for long enough, you collect enough of that data and then build a good machine learning algorithm, you can effectively predict what people are likely to want to look at. And essentially you are then modeling their own thinking. And this is where it kind of blends into this kind of neurological ethics and kind of neuro rights, because you can then be very easily manipulated if they have very good data about what you are likely to want to look at. And so I think that was the main, it's not that eye tracking itself is thinking, but enough eye tracking and a good algorithm means you can basically predict people's thinking. So that's the, but obviously if you add in all of this other sensory data, you get an even better picture. So that's something to be
yes. I guess that on the last moment, Peter has a hand up. So the last thing.
Yeah, I was just, I just wanted to relate to that eye tracking is thinking thing. So what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but Matthew, but isn't this already the case with stuff like click maps on websites?
Yes, yeah. I mean, so any kind of like user design research does a lot of work on eye tracking to see how people navigate things and what they're likely to want to work with. But I think the point is that within a kind of metaverse scenario, you have a lot more control over that than you would over a social media site like Facebook, which is already very well designed to harvest our preferences. And
okay, so there's just a lot more data, so you can draw a lot more conclusions.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
All right, thank you, all the participants of our discussion and all the participants of our workshop. So, Karina.
Yes, we're coming to the next part of our workshop. For the next 40 minutes, I believe, we would like to invite you to observe the game, which will happen in VR chat. Of course, it's not an accident. We are inspired by the research project we're conducting now. So we wanted to give you a tiny sample of this project and discuss it after. So I would say have fun.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Our great students will take cost of this.
We will share screen for our other account.
Right. We have to say that there was plenty of participants that they want to be involved in this game, and we could only
unfortunately
choose 4 of them. So yes. Okay, so we start.
Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to be a host of today's workshop's VR game. And right now, I would like to invite every player who has signed up for playing our game. Because right now we don't have everyone. So if you'd like to join us, please use the invite that was posted like about a few minutes ago on our Discord server, and I hope we can hear you soon. Hello again. I would like to repeat that our players who signed up for the VR chat workshop game, we kindly invite you to our game right now using the Discord game invitation.
Richard, some of our participants asking for a link again, if you can pass it on the chat.
The link to the Discord server, right?
Right.
Okay, so right now I'm posting the link right here.
We have
so,
yeah.
Yes, so if you would like to join us in game right now as a spectator, maybe, you're most welcome.
Hi. Hello. I'm Michael. I'm told. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are about to begin our game called Prohibition. Please listen carefully as I will now explain the rules. Imagine you are traders and your job is to carry certain goods you want to sell across the city border. You can choose milk or cigarettes, which are both legal products, but you can also choose alcohol, which is illegal. Carrying alcohol will give you more profit, but remember that if you'll get caught during the police inspection, you could be charged a severe fine. You choose a product you want to carry and send me a direct message with your declaration on Discord. In each round, one of you will play the role of the police officer who asks the other players what goods they are carrying. If you want to smuggle alcohol, you will have to lie to the police officer and convince him or her not to search you. In order to let you go, the police officer may require a bribe, but you can also offer it yourself. If the player gets searched and it turns out that they don't carry any alcohol, the police officer pays the player. But if the player does indeed carry alcohol, they must pay a fine to the police officer. You will play as many rounds as there are players. After each round, I will tell you your current score. Everyone starts the game with $10, and you can see how much money you can earn or lose throughout the game on the board right here, which I'm showing right now to our Zoom spectators. All right. Please take a minute to know it very well, both players and spectators. At the end of the game, we'll also sum up bonus points. Each pair consisting of alcohol and cigarettes will give you extra $3, and each set of free milks will give you extra $5. The player who earns the most money wins the game. If something seems unclear to you, feel free to ask questions. So, are there any questions now? I hope our players could hear us right now.
On the Zoom, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were using the Zoom, right? Right now, or you weren't?
No, I left Zoom before I got to VR chat.
Oh boy. Okay. Excuse me, but then because right now I explained the rules on Zoom, so we'll go through them again. Excuse me for that. Hello, everyone. We're about to begin our game called Prohibition. Please listen carefully as I will now explain the rules. Imagine you are traders and your job is to carry certain goods you want to sell across the city border. You can choose milk or cigarettes, which are both legal products, but you can also choose alcohol, which is illegal. Carrying alcohol will give you more profit, but remember that if you'll get caught during the police inspection, you could be charged a severe fine. You choose a product you want to carry and send me a direct message with your declaration on Discord. In each round, one of you will play the role of the police officer who asks the other players what goods they are carrying. If you want to smuggle alcohol, you will have to lie to the police officer and convince him or her not to search you. In order to let you go, the police officer may require a bribe, but you can also offer it yourself. If the player gets searched and it turns out that they don't carry any alcohol, the police officer pays the player. But if the player does carry alcohol, they must pay a fine to the police officer. You will play as many rounds as there are players. After each round, I will tell you your current score. Everyone starts the game with $10, and you can see how much money you can earn or lose throughout the game on the board right here. I think you've already gotten known of it. At the end of the game, we'll also sum up bonus points. Each pair consisting of alcohol and cigarettes will give you extra $3, and each set of free milks will give you extra $5. The player who earns the most money wins the game. If something seems unclear to you, please feel free to ask questions. And are there any questions right now?
I'm confused. What's the difference between money and points? What should I aim for?
Oh, they are the same thing actually. Money and points, dollars. Yeah, that's the way we measure your score. Are there maybe any questions?
I'm still confused then, sorry. So
yes,
looking at the chart,
yes,
I do pay in this instance here. I
yes,
pay $3, but I also get
yes.
points of dollars.
Since milk is legal, so you don't get they don't take your milk away if you're carrying it. But because you declared cigarettes and you're actually carrying milk, you get fined for, well, not being sincere with the police officer. But that's not a very viable strategy, to be honest.
So for lying, I have to pay the fine and I get the $1 as a point.
Yes, indeed. So you actually get, it sums up to minus $2 because you get $1 for milk, and you get minus $3 for lying to the officer, even though you didn't have to actually.
But if I declare milk and I carry milk,
yeah, that's all right. It's all right.
Okay, yeah. So the red ones are good for the non-officers, basically.
Yes, that's the thing. Okay, so
and what's the strategy for the officers? Is it the same money when we change roles,
yes,
or is it
yes.
the bank? You know, they have infinite money, and you just ask all the time.
The thing is that police officers use the same money as when they are players, so it's a bit of a risk to check every player because naturally not everyone's going to be carrying alcohol, and you might just guess wrong and then lose the money that you've earned during your player round. But to make it clear, if the player pays fine, the fine goes to the bank. But if the officer pays the fine for actually being wrong when guessing if the player is carrying alcohol, they pay to the player. So officers pay to the players, but players pay to the bank.
And the officers paid from their private, earlier earned
yes,
money.
Yes. Yeah, indeed.
So as an officer, why should I no. Is there any motivation for the officer to ask?
Well, if you do find someone who's carrying alcohol, they get minus $5. And also they don't carry in alcohol. So you basically reduce the amount, the gain of your opponents in the game.
Right, so for the overall scoreboard in the end, it's beneficial.
Yes, indeed.
I see.
And right now, I suggest that we play a trial round so we can all try out the mechanics of the game. So right now, I will play as the police officer just for a trial. Right now, just a tryout of the game. So right now, I would like you all to write your declarations to me, and I will play as the police officer just so we can all understand the game better before we play. So right now, just text me on Discord and send me your declarations.
Are we not doing this on VR chat, but in text?
You mean message me in VR chat right now? Excuse me.
No, never mind. I'll just get to my computer now.
Well, also, there is a way on most of the headsets, there is a way to access your desktop from the VR headset.
So do I write it publicly in the group
No,
chat?
no,
What
no.
I declare?
Send a direct message, please, right now.
To you.
So right now I've received only two declarations, and I'm still waiting for Penkichi and Puria. Could you message me your declarations?
Do you receive my message on board?
Yes, I have your message.
Okay, so I'm not quite certain if you have a conflicting role now with as a bank or
Yes, right now
experiment conductor and officer.
Right now this is a trial round, so I will be both the police officer and the bank, as a matter of fact, so that we can all try out the ways you can communicate with me, and if we understand the rules well.
So later on, the three of us will play one, will be the officer, but I still text you privately so the officer doesn't know what I carry.
Yes. Okay, so I've had gotten right now all the declarations. So let's start the trial round. Okay, Wheatley Labs, what are you carrying right now?
I carry milk.
And why should I believe you?
Well, you shouldn't. You know the truth because I just texted you, but normally you wouldn't know that as a player. So it's hard to make up a cover story here.
Well, maybe you would like to propose me one.
Do you believe me?
Do I believe you? Well, right now I can only look at one eye of yours at a time because they are on other sides of your head. So I don't know which one is lying. But I'm just gonna believe you, to be honest.
Oh, lucky me.
Well, welcome Ragnar. Or VR
Thank
Ragnar, excuse me. What would you like me to call you?
Well, you can do the second one for this occasion.
Okay, VR Ragnar. What are you carrying right now?
I'm carrying cigarettes.
You're carrying cigarettes. And how can you smoke cigarettes in this helmet like that?
I have some holes in my helmet, perfectly suited for it.
I actually don't believe you, so I'm going to check what you're carrying. And right now, as a police officer, I would turn towards myself right here, and I would ask, what is VR Ragnar carrying? And then me, as me, would say, well, VR Ragnar is actually carrying cigarettes. And then the police officer who decided to check your equipment, he would find out that he was wrong, and he would lose the money, and you would gain the money. Well, welcome. What are you carrying?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay.
And what are you carrying, Mr. Robot?
Milk.
All right. And what does a robot need milk for? You can't drink milk.
I can drink milk, of course.
All right. I'm gonna believe you actually. So let's go with that. But next time, be careful with that.
Okay.
Okay, so right now I'm counting the points. If you could give me just a second, and I will tell you what the round score would be like after this one. So Whitley Labs would actually gain $5. VR Ragnar would actually gain right now 3, and Penkichi, who was carrying milk, would gain 1. Okay, so I hope the rules are clear right now, and let's start the game.
And you would lose, wait, $3 because you doubted VR Ragnar.
Yes, but we would add that up probably.
No,
we would add that up at the end of the game.
Okay.
So right now we're starting the real game, and our first police officer will be Whitley Labs, and other 2 players, I would like you to send your declarations to me in direct messages. Okay, so right now I've got all the declarations, so we can start.
Okay. Then let's go the other way now. Excuse me, what should I call you? Penkichi?
Penkichi. Penkichi, please.
Penkichi. All right. What do you carry with you?
I think milk.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
so. Are you
so.
sure? Maybe you look again.
I'm sure.
Because if it would be alcohol,
Okay.
I would need to find you.
Okay. Yeah, I have milk.
Yeah. That sounds very convincing, but I would like to check really, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Who will tell the truth now?
I'm gonna be telling the truth now. And in fact,
right.
Penkichi was carrying milk.
You really were.
Yeah,
Good
I really
good
were.
on you. Here is $3, right? No, $1.
Yes.
I give you $1 now. Have a wonderful day with your milk and your dollar. And VR Ragnar, what are you carrying?
I'm carrying cigarettes.
Cigarettes. That sounds plausible. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Why, thank you.
Okay,
Have a good smoke.
VR Ragnar wasn't checked. So our current score stands as Penkichi having $12, VR Ragnar having $15, and Wheatley Labs having $9.
But we won't learn the truth about VR Ragnar now, right?
Well, VR Ragnar was actually carrying alcohol the whole time.
You were? Oh my God.
So right now, the same man who just lied to the police officer is going to become the police officer. So our other players, we invite you to send the declarations right now in the Discord direct message.
Sorry, who's the officer now? I didn't catch that.
VR Ragnar. All right, I've got both of your declarations, so we can begin.
Okay, I'll start with you, Wheatley.
Yes.
What are you carrying?
I'm carrying milk.
No. What are you really carrying?
Yes. No, I'm carrying milk.
Okay, I press F to doubt.
All right, so you're checking Wheatley Labs right now.
Yeah.
All right, so Wheatley Labs was actually carrying milk.
Way to play
Sorry.
safe. Boring. Okay, so what are you carrying then?
I'm having cigarette.
Why would you do that? What's your strategy?
My strategy is to win in this game, and yeah, and the reason why I'm having cigarettes is like, yeah, I just wanna smoke today.
Okay, I'll have to check this
Yeah.
one as well.
So you're checking Penkichi right now.
Yeah, it might be just fooling all of us once more.
Well, Penkichi was carrying cigarettes right now.
Oh, come on.
Sorry.
You're a doubtful person.
Yeah, that's why we're the honor.
Right. That makes sense.
All right, so right now I'm counting up the score. Give me a second. So the current score would be, suspend drum roll. We are standing at Penkichi having $14, VR Ragnar having $11, and Wheatley Labs having $11. And right now, Penkichi is going to be the police officer. So the other two players are, we ask you to send your declarations right now. And this is the last round.
It's the last round?
Yes, since we only have 3 players right now.
Right, then it's quite a tough deal to have 3 milks.
Well, in the original version of the game, we usually play as a 5 or 4, but right now, due to the time, we had to play with 3 because one of the players wasn't able to join us. So,
right.
Yeah, thanks. for the understanding.
New strategy.
All right, so I've got both the declarations and you can start.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you heard today?
I'm carrying cigarettes now. Apparently milk is a bad deal. Also, I'm lactose intolerant.
And considering the point now you have, maybe I guess you're honestly having their cigarette, so yeah, I don't check.
It would make sense, huh?
Yeah, I trust you. Hi.
Hi.
What are you carrying today?
I'm carrying some cigarettes.
Both here having cigarettes. That I'll check. I wanna check.
All right.
VR account.
VR Ragnar was actually carrying cigarettes this time.
Oh my god.
Fun fact, I wasn't.
Okay.
All right, so right now we're Right now we're adding up all the points with bonuses. So give us just a second. Okay, so the current score stands as Penkichi having 11 points, VR Ragnar having 20 points, and Wheatley Labs having 16 points. So VR Ragnar is the winner right now. So I would like let's have a round of applause for VR Ragnar.
I'm trying.
Thank you.
Richard, I don't know if the participants of the game, they are hearing us. Could you ask them if they can elaborate why they are picking up such avatars in the game, if they can tell us?
Okay. So right now I've just got the question from Zoom call, and Tomasz Gackowski asked you, why did you pick the avatars that you chose? What was the thought behind it?
I guess I can start. I chose mine because it's a From Software avatar, and I'm playing Elden Ring at the moment, so it was fitting.
Great. It's a cool game.
Indeed.
So for me, the choice was quite limited, as I rarely use VR chat, and I really love Octopus. So that's the closest I got so far, and that's also what I had earlier. So it just didn't change.
Okay, great. And what about you?
Hey there, DBB.
How about me? You mean the choices of avatar? I use a different avatar every day, so this is just whatever is today. It's quite nice. I like your hands.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Penkichi?
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I chose this avatar is like, yeah, the appearance is very neutral, and yeah, and yeah, I don't have the particular reason, but yeah, I chose just, yeah, it's very neutral one.
Okay. That's also a reason,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think we might be done right now. Yes, I just got a confirmation. So thank you everyone for participating in our workshop VR chat game. During most of the time in the week, we as University of Warsaw spend time doing researches like that. And we are very happy that you could all be part of that and experience what we are dealing with every day. Thank you very much.
Richard,
And,
please invite people to come back to the Zoom, all right?
all right, and I've just, excuse me, I'm just hearing Zoom right now, and also Zoom. Tomasz Gaskowski told me that you're invited into Zoom back again, probably to be questioned. So thank you very much, and have a good one. Have a good evening or a day, afternoon, wherever we are.
Right. Thank you for the invite to the game, and see you back on Zoom in a second.
Goodbye.
Thank you. See you there.
See you there.
Okay, so thank you very much once again for participating in our game. I hope that our players will come back to us because we would like to discuss with them also their impressions and thoughts. But before that, I would like to say 2 words about this project I was mentioning before. This project in VRChat we're conducting. So please give me your time and attention for 5 or 6 minutes. First of all, this project we're conducting, aim of this study is to first of all observe and analyze the player's behavior in the virtual space through the example of course, the VR chat. And we analyze this behavior in the perspective of 2 phenomena: taking risks and establishing and conducting social interactions. And this simple game you witnessed allows us to observe these 2 things, because you have to take some risks to win this game, and also you should communicate in certain persuasive, attractive way to also to win and to gain a position which allows to gain points. So research questions we posed are following. First of all, is there a relationship between the level of the tendency to take risks shown in the survey before the game? I will say a couple words about the methods in a minute, and the level of the tendency to take risks demonstrated in the game. Second research question, is the tendency to take risks in the game related to the intensity of use the VRChat application? Because we're trying to analyze the hard users of VRChat, but of course they differ in terms of depth and length, time spent in this app. And the third question is the tendency to take risks in the game related to the intensity of social relations in the game in the VRChat application? So, of course, we posed the hypothesis as well. I don't have much time to elaborate on that, but in general, we're assume that there's some interdependence between these variables and behavior and communication model, communication type of the players in the game. So that's where we're observing or trying to observe. About methods towards, we're conducting 2 surveys, 2 questionnaires with our players, one before the game. It's the questionnaire including the social demographic issues, but also exposure to VRChat, but also the multi-players online games. Then we conduct experiments, so the game itself, and after the game, we also ask our respondents, our players, to fill in the questionnaire number 2, and we call it the feeling questionnaire. So we're trying to assess, or we're asking our players to assess their behavior, but as well but also the other players, how they are behaving and what they were doing, how they were scoring. But the most interesting for now, the thing in this project is that the project that questions classic assumptions of social research. We're in the middle of this project. We've conducted 7 games, so with 4 or 5 players each game, so around 30 people. We questionnaire, and for now we know that, for example, we observed the inability to conduct standard communication. Generally, in classic social research, you have the predefined messages you send to respondents, you communicate with them in a certain way, very, very precisely planned. With this type of research, we know that it's impossible. When we try to communicate with standard messages, we're treated as bots. So it's impossible, in fact. The second thing is the ongoing readiness of the research team. So the recruitment process really takes a lot of time, a lot of messages we have to change with our respondents to schedule them and really inviting them to play. And of course, the consequence of it is they're breaking up the schedule really frequently, because I believe that they treat it more like fun than the research, the laboratory research itself. So it's a new environment, but also new ways to conduct research and to communicate with respondents. And for now, what do we know so far about the VR chat players and Polish VR chat players, especially because we are recruiting from the Polish VR chat community, I would say. Of course, it's quite closed group, reluctant to respond to strangers. So we have to invest some time to gain some trust and really communicate with them effectively. Of course, they are almost only young men, but choosing frequently female avatars with anime and theories above everything. Then it's the community which is well integrated and communicating with each other quite intensely, but at the same time superficially. So with short messages, quite shallowly, I would say. They are also players in general, players focused on world exploration, interaction, and experiences rather than scoring. So according to Richard Bartle typology, they are rather socializers and explorers rather than achievers or killers. And in general, we can say, like one of our team members said, they are playful, provocative, and ironic. So interesting to communicate, but not very easy to analyze. And what we know so far about the VR chats as an application, as the environment to conduct this kind of research, we know for now that it can be anything on the continuum between safe shelter and terrifying world. It depends mostly on the players themselves, on their behavior. So we have different experiences in this term. Then it also offers a variety of immersive social interactions, which of course attracts people because allows one to build one's own circle of friends, which is a substitute for loneliness in the real world, we believe. Of course, it's an assumption. We will analyze the questionnaires, but I believe that's strong. It's a strong assumption. And the first and third thing is this environment allows for full expression without social evaluation, which is very important, crucial, I would say, for our respondents. And not only in avatar and behavior, but also by co-creating objects and worlds, because VR chat application allows that. So it's the environment where you can be free, act freely, and not feel observed, I believe. And instead of conclusion, I was thinking about, I only want to share with you the quotation of one of our team members, which you had pleasure to meet virtually Mr. Ryszard Niziński, who said to me that he believed that according to many people who were met in this VR chat, this is the better than reality, which is astounding even for him. I can, to be honest, he's a digital native, so it's important observation. But in order to be able to research this group well, we have to eliminate all prejudice towards them and let them introduce to their work. So maybe it's a kind of project when we have to know our respondents, but also we have to know ourselves as well. It's also a challenge for us as researchers. And just at the end, I would like to say 2 words about this war in Ukraine. We would like to express our deepest solidarity and support for the brave Ukrainian nation who is fighting the brutal aggression of Russian Federation just in the moment. And of course, we encourage you to support them. We will link some fundraisings in a minute on the chat. If you want to, I think you should consider it. So we encourage you that. Of course, if you have any questions concerning our project or this game, feel free to ask. And if you have some questions, of course, the floor is yours. Please raise your hands on the chat.
Yes, and we put these links that you can find out how to support Ukrainians with their fight, not only for them, but for all of us. And right now we can open a discussion, so feel free to ask questions, and we can have some time to talk with each other.
And if maybe the players are present, we can ask them about their thoughts, their remarks.
Right now, and they understand what is the purpose and why this game was so projected in such a manner.
Yeah. About players. I see Michael. Very cool.
I guess that we were surprised that players that we were observing via Zoom, or some of us were participating in this environment, that they didn't comment on their image, what type of avatars they have, because this experiments that we already conducted before, there was plenty of time people spent on talking about, oh, how great hair you got, how you're looking at. So it was quite important
point of discussion. So Michael, if you could share, first of all, we were talking about avatars, but also we're interested in your gaming strategy. So you could take risks, you could do it. Did you do it, and why?
In the end, I could, sorry, I just had a really bad echo, but I think it's gone now. Okay. I didn't have much to lose in the end, so it's either go for it or die trying. So I went all in the end, but I think it would be a lot different if it would be more than just the 3 rounds. And then I think I would have played quite conservatively, with just carrying milk all the time, having not too much risk, but with a bonus still quite a good outcome. So I would have been hopeful that with others taking more risks and paying fees to each other and that going to the bank, that in the end, overall, the conservative strategy would pay off.
Okay, thanks a lot. From experience, we know that the dynamics of this game is better with 5 players, because they are, more
tactics are different, and they can get familiar with that.
Of course, due to the lack of time, we had to reduce them to 4. And I also thank you for this. Okay, I can see that Matthew, yeah.
Matthew has it.
Matthew has a question.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wondered if would the risks be higher if you used real money? you know, like online poker kind of thing, where you stake your claim and then you win the pot at the end. Would that give you a more kind of realistic risk-taking behavior approach? And do you do that in the experiment?
Fair point.
And would it be ethical or?
I don't think the ethics board would approve it. So, but of course, not the only thing that we analyze it. Anyone?
Thank you for participating in this experiment. Please pay $15 upfront. That sounds legit.
Because I thought wanted to have a flaw.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I think the fact that it was not real money made it so that I could take a risky move in the beginning and like smuggle alcohol and then just do the gamble then, and then it was safe to do the secret afterwards to get the combo. So and the officer didn't think about the combo, so they checked me. So that was just a nice bonus, I guess.
And do you feel satisfaction with winning or losing, or it is, oh, I would play again and I would do a different way? So what about your emotions? Yeah, do the game, it was changing, or you feel you know, envy, or maybe you were shy because we are watching on a Zoom? There was some, if you would, you know, jump into the details in your spirit and how you behave, if you could share, of course, in front of us right now.
I could at least say for me, I was shy in the beginning because you were watching, and it's the first time I've been using VR chat as well. It was yeah, but always fun winning. So that's that.
Thanks for being honest. Yeah, and others, Michael, maybe.
There is Rick. Also,
there's Rick.
Can I first? Yeah. I played as Penkichi, and at first I was so feel shy because everyone is watching me, but finally I could really focus on the game, and finally I was betrayed by the other players, and I was so regret here, and I was become so emotional in the end. Yeah.
Thanks.
And now I'm getting emotions.
We got it. Yeah.
Of course, we know also from experience that the process, that the group process also applies in this game. So, especially when we have 5 players.
I'm wondering because you know. We are running out of time, and maybe Richard and our brilliant students, they can show up and present themselves because they are in our VR chat room. We have dedicated sphere for such an experiment, and I guess that you have also Camila over there, and just floor is yours also. Richard, you appear as a Anna. They will come in, so they are coming to our place. It's going to be easier for them to present themselves and share some opinions and their experience running this. Come on, get in. Chodźcie. Pokażcie się.
Okay, well, right
now
we have...
they are over there, all right.
Yeah, we have a cam right here, and the other... Can you hear us right now? Hey, right now we are very glad that we could take part in this, and about our opinions. Well, excuse me, the others are joining. So here is all of us. Right, hello. So for me, the most interesting thing in the project was the fact that I would say that the fact that the user's behavior varies actually on the gender of the players. This is what we've noticed, that if you have a group of players who are only male, they tend to play smarter in a way, I'd say. But if we have for example, woman in a group, they start kind of showing off, taking risks, they're starting to like try harder and to win and maybe to impress the woman in the group, I would say. Well, it's a bold assumption, of course, but this is like one of the first. I'd say that this is like one of the first observations that we've made. And right now, I would like to pass the microphone to the others, maybe.
Maybe I just add that female players are quite rarely seen in this application. Till now, we had 32 male and 2 female players, so kind of rare. One. Okay. Something to add?
Hello, and our experiment is still on in progress. Yes, because we are lacking the the full groups of respondents. So we are currently we are continuing with 3 groups, which the games will take place next week. So then we will have the complete base of our respondents. Thank you.
We will check it out.
Okay, Debbie has the comment on the chat. Maybe I'll read it. Maybe some of the female players just sound like boys. I'm often mistaken as or addressed as a young boy in VR chat. Fair point, of course, but we're asking the gender in the questionnaires. That's why we know who is who. Of course, we have the option of male, female, other. I don't want to show. So we're not sure. Of course, it's not the sure knowledge, but we ask our players for this information. Okay. Thank you. Thanks to our students, the smartest one. Okay. Any other comments? Any other thoughts? If no, I think that we can finish. We're just on time. We're giving you 7 minutes for the coffee or the bathroom before the next workshop will start. Thank you very much for your presence. Thanks a lot for our speakers for giving a really great, inspiring presentation, which were very coherent with our topic we wanted to discuss. I believe that this social perspective in the VR, virtual reality or metaverse analysis are really needed. It's an obligation. And we're responsible to really conduct it. I'm not sure in which way, but I think that it's a good question to have to ask and to discuss. I know with my friends.
The starting point is to have right question, and we heard a lot of right question today.
Yeah, and I hope that with this workshop, we build some kind of a bridge between social sciences and mathematics, engineering. That they are mainly dedicated on the IEEE VR Congress. So I guess that this bridge will open up new possibilities to cooperate. And I guess that we are establishing a new way of cooperate with each other. And please feel invited to work with us and to be in touch. We, of course, want to present another results from our research. You can also find out many information on our website, which is www.lbm.uw.edu.pl. And what is more, we hope that we will meet each other in better times when this terrible terrible war, very close to Poland, in our in Ukrainian, will end. So one more, thank you very much. And of course, I'm very grateful for my team that are sitting in front of this desk and is on the next, of course, class, also next VR room. And thank you for your support, for your contribution, and see you next time. I am guys that very quickly.
Of course, Carlos, of course, we're listening.
Yeah, well, I would like to to have the opportunity to invite you to the VR AR Association Education Committee to present this experience of VR chat, because I think this could be very, very interesting. You know, we have many people from the States and Canada and not too many people from Europe. So I think this experience can help us a lot. You know, that we have around 570 people in the education committee from all over the world. So this could be a very interesting opportunity, and I will love to invite you to participate in our education forum that will be in May. So it's really happy that you can join us. Okay.
Thank you for this invitation. I think
and then the experiment will be done till that time.
Yeah. And thank you for this invitation. Of course, we'll do it with pleasure. I believe that we will finish our experiments till May and present some at least preliminary results with it. So thank you very much. So thank you.
Clap for all you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's be in contact. We're gonna mail you, yeah?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay.